After the finish of the 2010 Winter Olympics in Vancouver, the quantity of voyagers who needed to take a ride in sleds pushed by hounds decreased impressively. The sled hound visit industry went into emergency, and a few organizations couldn't proceed into business on the off chance that they didn't reduce expenses, which truly implied lessening the quantities of canines they kept up. One of the organizations compelled to reduce expenses was called Howling Dog Tours. It was relevantly named, for the canines cried in urgency as they were pursued and shot execution style, or had their throats cut by the director and proprietor of the organization, who couldn't stand to keep up countless butchers, at the time more than 300. Many canines were murdered by him in one single awful night. Interestingly, the issue was just found in light of the fact that the supervisor himself documented a case with the commonplace specialist's board requesting pay for having experienced post-traumatic stress disorder after the killings. He got it, as well. Afterward, mass graves containing the remaining parts of 56 dead mutts were found, despite the fact that in the case the quantity of casualties referenced goes over 100. The case drew worldwide shock, and the main positive result was that it set off a team that toughened common creature brutality laws. In 2007 in Puerto Rico, an organization called Animal Control Solutions was recruited by the neighborhood government to help control the quantity of lost canines and felines. Shockingly, their answer included tossing the live creatures from an extension. More regrettable, the majority of them were not homeless mutts or felines, however pets with standard proprietors, albeit most were people who lived in ventures in a poor piece of the city. As the inhabitants woke up, they discovered their dearest pets dead, or, on the off chance that they were fortunate and made do, with broken bones close to the extension. After the occasion, a large number of Puerto Ricans rampaged to dissent, and in the end those liable for the organization were pursued for creature misuse, something uncommon in the nation. In any case, they were seen not as liable and before long discharged.
Numerous basic entitlements affiliations impugned an alleged slaughtering of lost pooches drove by the Ukrainian government during the development for the Euro 2012 soccer title. The same number of other progressively ruined nations in Eastern Europe, Ukraine has bunches of meandering road hounds, and that, specialists dreaded, thought about adversely how guests would see the nation. So they brought forth up an arrangement to clear that awful picture, and away from boulevards of felines and canines. Anyway, the arrangement didn't work, for then they got the notoriety of little dog executioners. While definite numbers are elusive, some state that at any rate 9,000 creatures were executed in 3 distinct urban communities. A couple photographs demonstrating the remains of dead creatures got viral and, bowing to global weight, the Ukrainian government reported a 6-month prohibition on the killings and requested the nearby districts to manufacture progressively creature covers for the homeless canines as opposed to separating them. Nonetheless, it isn't clear if the measures were followed the nearby specialists or on the off chance that it was only a route for the administration to conceal any hint of failure. A practically untold story of the Second World War is the means by which, after the frenzy of the approaching war set in, the British government mounted a colossal battle to direct residents to dispose of their cherished pets so as to stay away from their passing or enduring during the bombings. Upwards of 750,000 pets were put down in only multi-week in 1939. While their demises were altruistic, some contend that they were a bit much at all and only spoke to a manifestation of war hysteria. More than the bombings, the fundamental danger for pets was the absence of food, since there were no proportions for creatures and food was scarcer during wartime. Be that as it may, numerous pets were not surrendered by their proprietors and had the option to make it, and asylums built up for canines and felines worked during the war and spared the lives of a huge number of creatures. Coming up next is additionally an account of preventive killing of creatures during wartime. Just it doesn't include felines and mutts, however, the creatures kept in a zoo. The Japanese government accepted that the creatures could circumvent during the bombings and become hazardous, so they conceived an arrangement to devastate them before that could happen. It was an awful occasion, less on account of the quantity of creatures slaughtered, somewhere in the range of 25 and 50, but since of the manner by which they kicked the bucket. The bigger creatures, including 3 elephants and 2 hippos, were essentially starved to death. It took a long time for the elephants to kick the bucket. Different creatures, for example, tigers and jaguars, were harmed. The occasion was likewise utilized as war-purposeful publicity, to set up the populace for the truth of the approaching air assaults. The creatures were portrayed as saints that were biting the dust for their nation, despite the fact that they didn't uninhibitedly pick that destiny. In 2011, a Vietnam veteran who was vigorously underwater, had been surrendered by his significant other and was experiencing post-awful pressure issue, chose to end his hopelessness prior to shooting himself in the head. In any case, he paved the way for free all the 56 intriguing animals that he kept in his hidden homestead, including bears, lions, panthers, monkeys, wolves and 18 Bengali tigers, and animal categories in grave peril of extinction. The thought of lions, wolves and tigers meandering indiscriminately among the neighborhood human populace didn't cause anybody to feel secure, and soon the police was called to mediate. They endeavored from the start to shoot a tiger with sedatives, however that alone made him progressively rankled, so they chose to shoot to slaughter. In the last check, 48 of the 56 creatures wound up dead, including the 18 delightful tigers. One monkey was still apparently everywhere for quite a long time after the occasion. However, the police cancelled the pursuit, trusting it was most likely eaten by one of the cats after the freedom. In 1730 in Paris, a gathering of printing disciples, as a retribution for what they accepted were awful working conditions, tormented and murdered all the felines that they could discover, including the cherished pet of their lord's better half. This genuine story is situated in the journals of a printing student, who along with an accessory executed several felines in a single night. The youngsters that worked in the printing shop got just morsels to eat and accepted to be commonly abused, while simultaneously they saw their lords spoiling their felines. So they chose to deliver retribution on the cats. A few felines, including the pet of their lord's better half, were caught and placed into sacks. Many were murdered on the spot with an iron bar. Others needed to endure a false preliminary, in which they were at long last denounced to be hanged, all to the entertainment of the laborers of the printer's shop, and to extensive less delight of the bosses. In the Middle Ages, felines were related with black magic and Satanism, so it was normal for them to be slaughtered in high numbers. By and large they were scorched in Goliath fires in the fundamental square of the urban areas, as individuals moved and cheered around. In one of those events, even the King of France participated. In certain events, notwithstanding, they endured other progressively unique types of death. In the city of Ypres, Belgium, for example, they were customarily tossed from the spire tower into the square beneath, to the diversion of the groups. Today the ghastly killings are recalled like clockwork during the Cut-10th March, which is anyway a feline inviting occasion where just toy felines are tossed from the pinnacle, and individuals dress as felines and move in the road, maybe in a solicitation of absolution to felines for their previous ways. During the pig influenza alarm of 2009, Egypt requested the executing of its entire populace of pigs. In excess of 3 lakh creatures were killed in a brief time frame. While no instances of pig influenza were ever reported in Egypt, the separating was declared as a preventive measure, so as to keep away from conceivable pollution. Others, in any case, say that it was a discipline measure against Christians, since they are the main ones who raise pigs in the nation, since Islam precludes the utilization of pig. Be as it might, None of the pigs murdered had influenza, and they were discarded without their substance being devoured. Be that as it may, the measure later reversed discharges gravely on the legislature. In Egypt, the pigs were generally taken care of with a similar natural garbage that in any case littered the urban areas. The pigs were fundamentally utilized as reusing machines. After their unexpected vanishing, the lanes of Cairo turned out to be actually secured with huge amounts of garbage, amusingly presenting individuals to a wide range of illnesses. It is conceivable this additional to the general discontent of the populace with the legislature and helped the deposing of Mubarak during the Arab Spring. A year later, the biggest creature penance celebration on the planet happens at regular intervals in Nepal. It is known as the Garhimai festival, out of appreciation for the Hindu goddess of intensity, Garhimai. We will in general consider Hindus veggie lovers who might not hurt dairy animals, which they think about consecrated. That might be valid for dairy animals, yet obviously it doesn't have any significant bearing for water bison, chickens, goats, pigs and rodents, which are relinquished in the quantities of several thousands. In 2009 it is assessed that somewhere in the range of 250,000 and 5 lakh creatures were killed during the 3 days of the celebration, which was seen by at any rate 1 million of admirers. The manner in which it works is that members carry their own creatures to the dining experience. The creatures are then executed with customary kukuri cuts by 250 approved slaughterers. The blood of the creatures should bring good karma. Thereafter the remaining parts are offered to tanneries or eaten. The following festival will happen in 2024.